The recent review of UK terror legislation, commissioned by Home Secretary Yvette Cooper in January, has concluded that broadening the definition of terrorism to encompass extreme violence perpetrated by lone actors like Axel Rudakubana is ultimately unproductive. This decision follows Prime Minister Keir Starmer's commitment to modernize anti-terrorism laws in response to a perceived new threat: the rise of isolated individuals, often described as loners, misfits, young men in their bedrooms, engaging in extreme acts of violence. The Southport murders served as a stark catalyst for this legislative review. The review's findings challenge the government's initial approach, highlighting the complexities inherent in expanding the definition of terrorism. The case of Axel Rudakubana exemplifies this challenge. Despite being flagged as a potential risk 3 separate times by the Prevent Counter-Terrorism program, Rudakubana was ultimately dismissed due to insufficient evidence of adherence to any recognized extremist ideology. This case underscores the critical need for a nuanced approach to identifying and addressing threats of this nature. Simply broadening the net to capture individuals like Rudakubana risks casting too wide a dragnet, potentially ensnaring individuals who, while exhibiting concerning behavior, may not pose a genuine terrorist threat. The review's recommendation to maintain a more precise definition of terrorism is not a sign of complacency, but rather a reflection of the evolving nature of threats. The government must strike a delicate balance between ensuring public safety and safeguarding civil liberties. An overly broad definition could lead to disproportionate surveillance, harassment, and the erosion of fundamental rights, potentially fueling resentment and undermining the very principles the legislation aims to protect. The challenge lies in developing effective strategies to identify and mitigate the risk posed by individuals like Rudakubana without resorting to overzealous legislation. This requires a more sophisticated understanding of the factors that contribute to radicalization and violence, moving beyond simplistic labels and exploring the underlying psychological, social, and economic drivers. Investing in early intervention programs, mental health services, and community support networks might prove more effective than expanding the already broad reach of anti-terrorism laws. Furthermore, the review likely considered the potential for misidentification and the impact on due process. False positives, where individuals are wrongly identified as threats, can have devastating consequences on their lives and reputations. A more precise approach, focusing on demonstrable evidence of intent and association with terrorist organizations, is crucial for maintaining a fair and just system. The review's conclusion underscores the importance of striking a balance between proactive security measures and the preservation of individual rights. The focus should shift toward identifying and addressing the root causes of violence rather than simply expanding the scope of existing legislation. This will require a multifaceted approach involving law enforcement, mental health professionals, community leaders, and social workers, working collaboratively to prevent future tragedies. The path forward requires a more nuanced and comprehensive strategy than simply broadening the definition of terrorism.